That said, I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And some guidelines for that participation. Please utilize the chat or raise hand function if you wish to be addressed by the board. People will remain on mute until they are addressed by the board. And participants are required to display their first and last names as their username. That said, by tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
Jillian Casanos.
Bill Payne.
Jim Garrity.
Excellent.
Rebecca Longbow.
All right. And first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now hear a notice of intent under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss the notice of intent for 711/713 Main Street, the demolition of an existing barn. The applicants or one of the applicants' representatives here tonight to speak about this project?
Nick King is present. It looks like I'm trying to unmute him. Maybe Daniel Carr might be able to represent the project as well. I believe that is their wetland scientist. Oh, there you go.
Hi, yes, I'm Dan Carr. I'm the civil engineer for the project, but I believe I was here for any engineering questions, but I believe Nick was going to lead the presentation.
Okay.
Are you able to let Nick in, or is there a?
Nick is in and he is muted. I'm trying to unmute him and I'm not getting a response. Let me see if I can check.
Hello, can you guys
there
hear
we
me?
go. Now we can hear you.
I believe Tim is going to be running this. I'm assuming he's wrapping up from the previous meeting that was at 6:30.
Okay.
The special permit meeting,
Okay.
but I'm not equipped at the moment. I'm just observing.
Okay. So Tim will be in attendance at this meeting.
Yeah, I'm assuming the special permit meeting that started at 6:30 is just lagging behind a little bit.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, maybe at this time we table that item.
So I was thinking, and we have some time too, so if we can get to some of the other things on the agenda, I think that is perfectly fine. Or do you want to try to roll it back to the end or roll it?
I think we can certainly address the request for certificate of compliance at this time, since it's not associated with the time.
Yep.
So if you just table it to address that item and then perhaps the minutes, maybe that will give Tim enough time to finish up.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. All right, so we're tabling this discussion for now of 711/713 Main Street, the demolition of an existing barn, and moving down to the request for certificate of compliance for 285 Long Hill Road, DEP file number 112-0521. Rebecca, do you have an update on this request for a COC, and have you had a chance to visit the site?
Yes,
Okay.
I was actually out on site today. Everything is in compliance. Their limit of work is the same that was proposed. Everything's stabilized and grown in. I believe the old property owners who filed for the request for a certificate of compliance, the property just very recently transferred hands. But the previous property owner, I believe, is present for any questions, but it was found to be in compliance and stable on site today. So I didn't have any further concerns other than just ensuring that the limit of work is maintained with the next property owner.
Right. All right, so no reasons why we would deny it or should deny it that you could see, perfectly fine. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments regarding the certificate of compliance? Seeing any members of the public here tonight to comment on the request for a COC for 285 Long Hill Road? Again, not seeing any. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 285 Long Hill Road, DEP file number 112-0521. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
So Corinne, once the signatures are received, then I will reach out to you to just confirm. I know we had talked earlier on your preferred mailing address, but we'll confirm that before it's sent, and then you know when it's being sent.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the time.
Right, take care. To members of the commission, well, I was gonna say, we're still waiting.
Oh, Tim is here.
Oh, yes, okay. Do we want to jump back to 711, 713 Main Street? Tim, if you are willing to give us an update or able to speak to it?
I am, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for my tardiness. We're still in our public hearing with the Zoning Board of Appeals. It started half an hour ago. So Craig has stayed with that, the owner, and he will join us as soon as that concludes. And if I can find my materials, apologize, bear with me.
I understand why, yep.
Let's see, and we are barn NOI first, is that right?
Correct.
All right, I've got my application up. Okay. All right, and can I share my screen?
Yeah, Rebecca, if you could allow him to share his screen, that would be excellent.
Yep, you should be able to, Tim.
All right, can you see it?
Yes, I
Okay,
can.
terrific. Thanks, Rebecca and Mr. Chair. Okay, so I've skipped ahead to the sort of graphic portion of things. The first 29 pages, I'm happy to return to if we think that's helpful. By way of orientation, the existing barn outlined in red, view from above, and of course, a little tougher to see. The stream is underground. It's daylighted starting somewhere around here, exposed under the barn, underground again, daylighted here. And that edge is roughly consistent with our property line. Conditions at the barn, early spring, you can see the forsythia there. clockwise from upper left, view the barn from the west, or if you had stepped from the town common into the thicket there, just a handful of steps in toward the barn, there's that view. The upper right, the view from our courtyard. Continuing down lower right, apologies for the exposure here. The view roughly from the town common parking space. And then a view, pardon me, a view from that space between the building address 711 on our parcel back toward the barn. You can see a chain link fence here, which is roughly consistent with our northern boundary. And it's in this bay of the Undercroft through which the Great Brook passes. We did, I believe there's documentation as a part of this application that indicates our having tested and found, actually it wasn't in here, we found a very small amount of asbestos in the caulking or the putty glazing material for the window here, and that cladding, which is mostly obscured here, is a different cladding than this. This is a mostly asphalt product. The product, not quite visible here, has a significant asbestos component. So that was tested, and the remediation processes would of course be connected to our would precede the demolition of the barn, and would share some of the same protection measures. Some of the same protection measures would be used. So the Great Brook has probably, oddly, the best condition structurally. The best structural condition of the barn happens to coincide with the location of the Great Brook. This is a view from sort of right on axis under the front gable of the barn. You can see that the degradation and structural failure is pretty substantial. The floor is absent in the back here, or for, let's call it the rear third of the building, and some smaller fraction of the rear wall has some time ago decayed and fallen down, and you can see, these are floor joists. What ought to be up here is down here, and you can see a significant bit of daylight sneaking through there. Whoops, which way am I going here? Apologies. My scroll wheel is ticklish. Oh, I guess that's it there. Here we go. That's what I'm looking for. Let me try a different method here to get through image by image. There we go. All right. Give me a moment to zoom on this. So what we anticipate is a temporary plywood platform constructed over the wettest portion of this area back here. These sort of I or H marks indicate approximate ladder locations. The cladding material would be removed by hand, individuals on ladders in spots positioned roughly like that. The line with the X would be the location of our erosion and debris control. We would net over the brook with a heavy tarping material that I believe we specified in some detail up in the text content. The in this location, we would stage the salvaged materials. It's our intent to preserve as much of the viable material from the barn as we can. We don't believe it's a great percentage, but certainly there'll be some. The location indicated by this dash mark here would be our location of the 15-yard dump trailer. So the way this would work is that that trailer would be loaded up on a daily basis, and at least 3 times a week it would be removed from the site. I didn't, in speaking with the demolition contractor anticipated for the job, he indicated 5 days a week. I'm just trying to hedge my bets a little bit and say probably 3 days a week at least. That would be out of there. So sort of hopeful that the board would see some advantage in a dump trailer rather than a dumpster that might reside there, in a kind of ongoing, longer way. So I think this graphic pretty well describes our erosion and debris control locations, the staging of the materials, the staging of our dump trailer, our point of access, except for that initial work that would happen by hand on the cladding. The rest of the work would happen from within the barn and, movement all in this direction. So the controls indicated to the north and east are, would be for all those things that, pieces of construction that didn't do what we intended to do. We're not going to be in here pushing anything out that way. We're going to be pulling everything in. So this is to kind of catch accidents and, overspill and things that don't behave as we'd like them to. So I think that's probably a good overview of the graphic. Shall I, Mr. Chair or Rebecca, would it be helpful for me to move through any of the preceding pages and highlight some things there, or how would you like to handle this?
It would be fine. I'm trying to think what are some of the things you're looking to possibly highlight. And I was going to ask too, is this is purely the demolition and removal of the existing barn?
That is
for this
correct.
NOI?
Yeah, that's correct. We're under an emergency order from the building commissioner and eager to act on that as soon as we can. And, it's our intent to put another barn back here.
Yeah.
Expect that there would be additional scrutiny appropriate and applicable to that project at that time.
I was going to ask you, you say you tarp over you tarp over the stream, excuse me, during demolition, careful not to get anything in there, but once it's removed, before anything else is approved or anything else goes in, what's the condition that the stream's left in at that point? Is it, are the tarps removed and it's just left exposed? Are we covering it over with something again? What was proposed for after demolition for how the stream is to be left, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. We had not proposed any particular treatment or protection for the stream in the after. My sense would be that, that it would be essentially daylighted by the removal of the structure above and around it.
Yep. Okay.
Maybe, I'm not sure what else you imagine, maybe some like a fall protection kind of thing for folks that might be, accidental.
No, it was more of a curiosity, and I'll probably follow it up too by asking Rebecca, is there anything major to expect from changing that section of stream that's kind of been in the dark for so long to daylight. And I don't foresee that as an issue, but I'd be curious as to what Rebecca said. But it would be more protecting it against any type of erosion before something else is rebuilt there or proposed. What it would be exposed to as far as runoff. In theory, when you're done with the demolition, you're pulling up the erosion controls, but now that there's not a barn there and it's just a lot, do we have to worry about significant runoff down into the now exposed stream? I guess is where I was looking at that, just for the time in between, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it seems that, something like straw wattles would be pretty easy to apply around the stream. And siltation fences. Yeah, frankly, just hadn't thought about it, so I'm doing my best on my feet as we speak. But it seems like those things would be easy and maybe appropriate.
Because I'm looking at the picture. I'm assuming the stone wall is staying in place and that's not being removed. In which case, is there a drop there then? Do we have to make sure the property's fenced? That it's not just kind of a fall off into the stream now that wasn't there before. Just kind of curious what it would look like when everything's done. I guess with some of the questions going through my mind, I think you did a good job of explaining the phases in which taking it down and the protections you were putting in place to take it down and remove it. And of course, I'm going to open that up to questions from other commission members and people from the public. But I think you did. I could understand basically what the NOI is laying out. And again, if I open it up to questions and people want to go more in depth, if you want to go find some of those other slides, I think that would be fine. But so me saying that, let me open it up to other commission members. Any other commission members have any initial thoughts, comments, or questions?
You're talking about possibly putting another barn back in the location. Is this section of the barn structurally sound that you don't have to remove it?
No, it's not.
It's not.
This section, thank you for that question. The barn has been found unsafe and we are under an order from the building inspector to remove the barn.
But even that section that's over the stream, or at least until you're proposing to actually go on to the next level, not exposing anything, not causing any safety hazards or anything else like that, is that I don't know, is that an option to leave that section intact until you're going into the next level?
Yeah, that's a good question. The order applies to the whole barn as one. And I believe that our sequence of events would be better served by getting all of the timbers out of the way so that we have access to the site and work on that foundation. And the future barn is not a distant fantasy. The future barn is in the works, and the structure, the bones of it, if you will, have been in fact purchased. So it's the I don't know how to sort of handicap the likelihood of timeline, but on the order of a year or 18 months or something like that, there's going to be a new barn here. A new old barn, I should say, very old barn.
I just have one other question. You said in the back section of the lot, you had a plywood landing. I'm sorry, I didn't catch what that was for.
It's just a bit of a staging area and just some protection for that. There's a lot of, to my eye, it looks like wetlands. With our wetland scientists, in his assessment, it's actually not functioning as a wetlands. It doesn't meet the definition with the plant materials and things, but it's our sense that it would be relatively easy to offer some protection there. And so we would offer to do that.
And what are you staging? Only because you were mentioning everything was happening in the front of the barn. So I'm just questioning, the stuff that's being removed from the back of the barn or,
Thank you for a chance to correct that. Probably staging is not the right word, but I guess it's a sense that perhaps the wetness might make that the square footage there a bit more vulnerable than some of the other areas where it's easy to walk, and it's a kind of I don't know, if something were to fall 4 feet from the barn on the left or right side, somebody could go grab it. If it were to fall 4 or 5 feet from the barn in the back, it would land in that area where last time I was back, there was some standing water. And it just seemed like it would probably be helpful and ease things if that were covered.
It is pretty wet back there, and I could see that area being trampled if it wasn't covered. So covering it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Additional questions by members of the commission?
So in the picture on the bottom right, after everything's removed, are you removing everything that's shown on the ground, or whatever lands on the ground? Everything's being removed by hand, or will you have any kind of equipment in there?
There will be no heavy equipment in the sense of like a big excavator kind of thing. If you're imagining that, it's going to be largely by hand and simple, smallish machines. What'll be removed is timbers. I mean, it's our hope to find some other pieces and fractions of foundation that are worth salvaging and using as the kind of start of a new foundation. That, if you look at the shot on the left, that sounds insanely optimistic. If you look at the shot on the right, it sort of seems like, yeah, there might be a few good things down there. But we won't really be able to know until the timbers are all out of the way. I mean, it's just even a scary place to be. If you're down there long enough to take that photograph, you think, I probably shouldn't be here.
I flipped through the document and might have missed it. How long do they anticipate this will take? So how long will the plywood be over that area and staging be in place?
Let me see if I can find it, because if I answer by memory, I'm not likely to get it right. So I'll give you a dangerous answer, and I think it's something like a matter of a few months. If that's specific enough, I don't think there'd be any reason for it to elongate beyond that, and we wouldn't have to be too lucky for it to be quite a bit better than that. Does anybody know the form well enough to direct me to where the timeline might be?
I'm not sure that there is a timeline.
Okay.
I think that was Jillian's question.
So,
Yeah, I
well,
looked and I didn't know if I saw one. So would the plywood be down on all the vegetation for a few months? Would you put it down daily? I don't remember from memory what's there. There is lots of vegetation there.
there's not much. When, again, I'm an architect, not a wetland scientist, but to my eye, it looks like in that wet area, there's not much vegetation. There's some rocks and there's some sort of I don't know, an algae bloom or something. It looks to me like rust. There's a kind of a very red, it doesn't look like a super healthy environment back there, but yeah, I don't think it would be our intent to put the plywood down and remove it on a daily basis, but put it down at the beginning of work in that area and then remove it at the end of work in that area. I can tell you that in my experience with other barns of this scale and scope, demolition can be pretty quick. Now we're going to be more careful here than we've been in my other experience. But you know, it's not gonna go on for months and months and months and into a year. It's going to be, you know, 2-3 months, maybe 4 months at the worst, kind of thing. I hope that doesn't sound too slippery of an answer, but
Other members of the commission have any questions or comments?
So back to your original question, Brian, when you were talking about, if we go back to that picture on the bottom right again, where you were talking about, would there be a fence up around the wall after that barn is removed, and what kind of cover would we leave on the ground after the barn had been removed? I think are the only questions that are still outstanding in my mind.
Yeah, and again, I understand there are plans for another barn coming in, and hopefully that'll move along at a regular pace. But just in that interim, if it is a year and a half,
That'll be, yeah,
how will
sounds
that
like-
affect that stream? And, and are there certain conditions we should put in place to protect the stream?
And I think that's all that's outstanding in my mind right now. How do we protect the stream in that 1 year plus time frame?
Rebecca, do you have thoughts, comments? Would you like to weigh in on anything we've just kind of been discussing a little bit?
Sure. I guess circling back to what Bill just brought up, but through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, you had asked Brian the question about whether or not that foundation, the stone wall portions under the barn would remain. So basically the walls or the channel of the stream. And I didn't hear a clear answer of yes, they're staying, or no, they're to be removed. So I was hoping the applicant could give a clear answer of that.
thanks, Rebecca. If the condition, the condition of the wall visible in the left here, that wall is going to stay. That wall is in good shape. If we find anything else in remotely that kind of shape, it's going to stay. What's along here, I can't imagine a good reason to remove that stuff. Much of the rest of the foundation is just not visible enough for us to get a good look at.
Sure. So I think my concern would be that if so the commission can condition that the stone walls to remain, or the stone channels to remain on either side of the brook if they wanted to. Mike.
Nope.
I'm here still.
Okay.
You have the netting over the brook as you've proposed, or the tarp, which is great, and it's going to protect as you're removing the timbers. But you're having it over the brook. I'm presuming that you're having it basically anchored to those two sides. So once you remove the timber and you daylight the stream, which isn't necessarily as a negative at this time, then you're going to have an exposed brook. And I want to be sure that we're not impacting it by impacting the sides and the channel of the brook at this time. And if you are proposing to do that, that needs to be very clear and laid out to the commission, which I do not see at this time in your application. So I'm presuming, and it sounds like you're under the same presumption, that that is not part of the plan. Additionally, regarding some of the
Can I just
commission
stop you
members.
there? I'm not sure we're in agreement on that.
Okay.
We have no intent to alter the channel of the stream. Is that
Right.
other
So
than
that's-
what you?
That is what I'm saying, is you're not altering that stone wall, which is essentially acting as the channel of the stream at this time. So immediately adjacent to the stream, you're not proposing to alter that area.
Right.
Yes, okay. And then the other point that a few of the commission members brought up were, and you had stated yourself, looking at the area that's immediately on top of the stream and the fact that it seems structurally sound, I don't know. But would it be possible to leave that until, so that not only is it a hazard for reasons outside of the wetlands jurisdiction, but also you don't have more detriment to the stream. And also it will be protected slightly from any sort of erosion because you're not messing with the footings that I'm seeing there. That may, when you shift to that, there may be some material that's moved into the brook, but that was, I think, something that was relevant. But it seems as though currently your proposed plan is not to do that and to remove all the timbers from the project. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's 2 points I'll do my best to be crystal clear on. Number one, I believe that our sequence of events proceeds best if we remove all the timbers with the demolition of the barn. The purpose of removing the timbers is to prepare for the creation of a new barn. And we can't place the new barn there until the old barn is gone. The second point is that we are under order to remove the barn now. So if the commission saw some advantage to the preservation of some fraction of the barn for some reason that's beneficial to the resource, I would say the commission should take that up with Mike Savageau.
Yep. I appreciate that clarification. And I think last question I had, I think the plywood was already addressed. Can you just clarify the dump trailer, the 15-year dump trailer? How long will that be in place at a time?
Yeah, the demolition contractor described in his scope of work that, that we've evaluated in consideration of contracting with him every day at the end of every workday. And in our application, I hedged his bets a little bit to say 3 times a week. Construction often doesn't do exactly what we'd like it to do. And I have learned that adding little bits of buffer help manage expectations a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your transparency with that. That's certainly something the commission would be able to condition, whether they require it to be removed daily or the 3 times a week as you proposed. So I have no further questions at this time, Brian.
Members of the commission have any additional questions for what we just heard from Rebecca? Not seeing any right now.
Well, I don't know. I still,
Go ahead.
I mean, are we going to condition the area where the barn's being removed for that 1-year time frame going forward? Are we going to ask for a fence over that rock wall on the left and some kind of, erosion control where the barn's being removed? I guess is the only thing still out. I don't think I've heard an answer to that or a solution to that yet.
I think the commission would be able to condition silt fencing, a line of silt fencing. You could even require snow fencing just for visibility purposes if necessary. And then also you can include a wattle with that. So in my notes, I just noted erosion controls along the pavement south of the stream. So that would be basically mitigating, or it should mitigate, any erosion that's coming off the site directly into the stream from the paved area, which now might be perceived to be protected by the constructed barn. But
Okay.
again, I don't even know if that's providing any protection at this time. But the commission's able to do that.
How big of a drop is that? I mean, is it like a 3-foot drop, 4-foot drop? I mean, we have drops like that all over town as far as protection wise, but can we condition like an after the fact of once the barn is removed, we can see actually what is exposed and how it may need a wattle, it may not need anything. So we're not just, a fence or anything on that sort. Can we do it after it's all said and done and we actually see a better picture of something than what we're looking at right now?
So the commission is able to issue an order of conditions with the relevant conditions. The applicant is able to come back to consider a field amendment. So for instance, if once it's demoed, the commission conditions that there's erosion control necessary, silt fence, whatever the perceived need is to protect the resource area. At that time, if it's perceived that the site is stable, the applicant has the ability to come back to the commission and say, the site's actually more stable than we had originally perceived. We don't feel a wattle's necessary, but maybe the silt fence is, or the silt fence not, but the wattle may be, or that sort of a conversation. But that, I guess, is the way I would propose to address that versus not having it. You can't add a condition in afterwards unless the applicant comes forward with a new filing or there's an enforcement order, or they feel that it's necessary, so they throw it on there, but there's really no enforcement ability of the commission unless there's a problem with it at that time.
Okay, got it. Good.
If I may, to the first simplest part of that question of how high is that wall, the photo on the lower left here may give you a sense of scale. It is, I'm going to gamble that it's about 5 feet high. I can't quite stand up in there, but it's not, you don't have to crawl.
Excuse me. Other commission members have questions, comments? And then just, is there anybody from the public here tonight with a question and or comment regarding? And I'm not seeing any.
Well, I just have one last question.
Go ahead, please, Lori.
When do you think you're going to be coming in front of us with a notice of intent to put the new barn in?
Yeah, the short answer would be as soon as possible. You have seen on your agenda, we're going to be before you starting about 13 minutes ago for our RDA for 7-Eleven. When, I think there are a couple of hurdles that are just a bit more acute and immediate, but as soon as we clear those, and it could well be this fall. Is that a helpful answer?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Yep. I mean, conceivably sooner, but we've got a lot to do.
Believe it. All right. Not seeing any additional questions or any other comments. Again, no members of the public here tonight. Trying to think of the best way to proceed, because there was a few things we discussed tonight that I think we'd like to see put in. And again, Rebecca, I think you had brought up too, possibly memorializing the stone channels to remain and not be removed. We probably want to add something to the NOI about erosion controls and basically proper maintenance of the site until something else is built. I would think we'd want to get, well, actually, Jillian kind of brought it up with the overall time frame. I was looking at it with some of the with the plywood covering, but just that general time frame of what's the maximum amount of months it would be there before you would have to come and ask for for an extension if something crazy was going on. But just a time frame for the project. I'm trying to think.
Brian, just
Go ahead, Rebecca.
one note, I think it would be relevant for the commission to ask about the timeframe associated with the plywood or the tarping of the stream, or those aspects. The order of conditions, once it is issued, is good for 3 years.
Right.
Just a note about that. So that I'm just clarifying for the commission, because the commission's always able to ask But I don't know that there's necessarily a restriction as to shortening a time period under the order of conditions.
Okay. But it would make sense if we were to possibly put in a seasonal, some sort of seasonal part to the order where, you know, again, if this needs to take a year, which it's probably not going to take a year, we don't foresee that, but they're not left down through the winter, that, you know, at the end of a certain season, they're pulled up and put back down again, something along those lines. And I think the other thing we talked about was the refuse truck. And possibly getting it, and I know I do appreciate you trying to be honest, saying it might go 3 days, not every day. But I think we could at least put that that at the end of the workday that it's not left within the 25-foot buffer zone. So in other words, when they go to dump it, they go to dump it. And if it's not a day they're going to dump it, basically they just need to pull it up 10 feet. So it's outside of that 25-foot buffer zone and leave it parked there for the night rather than leaving it in the 25-foot buffer zone. And I think going through my notes, that's basically all the additional, I guess, conditions or related items I'd like to see on the NOI. Is there anything I missed? Either Rebecca, if you can remember anything I missed, or other commission members?
I would also suggest, if I may, that, so there was a mention of use of machinery. So just making a condition that all machinery shall remain on or be stored on existing paved areas.
Yep.
For similar reasons that you relayed regarding moving things out of the 25-foot area and making sure that we're not encroaching further onto the resource areas.
Rebecca, can I ask you just a process question?
Yep.
Would it make sense if unless we come up with other things that we would need to put in there, to close tonight, have a chance for you to basically write all this into the NOI, to add these additional things we've kind of asked, and then just vote on it at next meeting?
Yep.
Okay. And Tim, would that be fine to you? Does that make sense?
It makes great sense. And so humor me long enough to say another possibility would be that you could vote on it tonight and condition it and, get a kind of verbal agreement and consensus on conditions tonight for the vote. Rebecca could articulate those in appropriate language, with the sort of, whatever resources at her disposal of her office and whatnot.
I do appreciate the ask, but these can be tricky ones, and those have been issues in the past trying to do it that way. And I, for one, like to see what the final wording is on some of these things, because I think some we're kind of guessing on tonight, and will give us a better chance to actually memorialize it properly, and actually everybody have a chance to read it and look through it and make sure they're in agreement.
Understood.
I will put the option out there to you, because it is perfectly fine with me either way. If you want to continue to our next meeting in case there are additional questions or anything that pops up, we could do that and then close and vote on it there. So, as long as we get it together in the next 2 weeks, or we can go ahead and close tonight, and then we'll just end up voting on it next meeting. I don't know which you would prefer, but I'm fine either way.
Thank you. Yeah, I think if we're not gonna vote till next meeting, I think it would be a shame to shut down the ability to ask and answer any questions until that
Okay.
time.
Okay. In that case, unless anyone else objects, I'm going to move to continue. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for 711, 713 Main Street, the demolition of an existing barn, until our next public meeting. Wow, is it July 6th, Rebecca? Do we have?
I believe it's the 5th, but if you, while we're stating that, it may be
Yeah.
beneficial. I know it's a holiday weekend just prior to just confirm with commission members that they are available that evening. We're still remote on that date to note.
I was to say that we have one more remote, right, before we have to go back, so after the 20th, right, of July? Okay. So I would put that out there to commission members. Would people be available for July 5th, a meeting?
Brian, I'm not available that week.
Okay,
I'm available, Brian.
I am.
okay. 3,
I am, but not the 6th. The 5th, yes.
okay. But I should be available the 5th too, as well. So we should be fine, right? Especially if we get Paul. Okay. What's our first
If I
available
could-
time? 7?
Yep, 7.
If I can just add, we do have another public hearing in another town that night, and I'll need to check that agenda. And would there be, might it make, could we conceive of a later start time that evening? Would that make any sense?
Sure, we could. The other thing too is we can open it and then table it. If you're all right with that, I'd go with a later time. If we make it through our agenda quickly, I hate to keep people waiting. I never know if it's going to be a full agenda or a quick agenda.
We go with 7:30 or 7:45, Brian.
I think that would be fine. Yeah. If that's all right with you guys. And again, I guess we will have the understanding too, that, if you are running that late that night, let us know and we can move through other things on the agenda.
Well, if I could just ask, I see Nick on the Zoom here. Nick, did we get an agenda slot for that, for our 206 Barton hearing?
Not to my immediate knowledge, but I can look into that.
Okay. Sorry, Brian, I can't be more specific.
Okay. We'll tell you what, we'll put you first on ours. And like I said, if we need to, we can open it and table it for the end of the meeting. And again, as discussed tonight, we know that this may not be a convenient date for you, and who knows, maybe they can put you late and you can get us early and them late, or we'll figure it.
Yeah. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate that attitude. We'll do our best to find some flexibility.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. All right. So in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 711 SAS 713 Main Street, demolition of an existing barn, until our next public hearing, Tuesday, July 5th at 7:00 PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
A second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
So Tim, it appears to be at 8:15 on the 5th.
Okay, we'll get you at 7 and hopefully it'll be a quick one.
That's great. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I'll talk to you shortly, I'm sure. Rebecca, are you ready to move on to Escalante?
Yes.
Okay. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss a request for determination of applicability from Escalante International regarding a test well installation. Rebecca, is the applicant or someone representing the applicant here this evening?
Yes, they are. They should be unmuted at this time.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can,
Okay,
thank you.
perfect. So my name is Kelly Durfee Cardoza with Avalon Consulting Group, and I'm here tonight representing Escalante the International. I have with me Steve Brennan, who is the general manager of the International. I know that several of you on the commission are familiar with the International, but for those of you who aren't, the International is located between Ballville Road and Wilder Road. It's occupied by two 18-hole golf courses and a 9-hole golf course. It's been called Twin Springs. Irrigation water, which is what we're talking about here, is provided by two irrigation wells, 1 and 2, and they're shown on this site plan. Thank you, Rebecca. They're both 128 feet deep, and they were installed number 1 in 1956 and number 2 in 1981. They're permitted under the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection Water Management Act. So well 2 has failed and it needs to be replaced. There are two reasons why we're proposing to do a test well just north of well 2 now, and to replace it in that location. The first is to maintain the approval under the Water Management Act. We need to be within 250 feet. The second is that prior to the installation of well 2, there were test borings completed down the driveway. So this area, you can see by the topography here, there's a where the PROP is, you can see that this is a hill and this is a flat area going down to the wetland to the south. And that flat area right where Rebecca's cursor is a gravel roadway. The test wells were done on that gravel roadway, moving to the east, closer to the golf course. And we know that these wells are located in a fault. So to get the water out of the ground, you need to intercept that fault. And they were not able to find it as they moved further east. So our proposal is to put a 2.5-inch test well in here with a track mounted machine. It would be essentially a 2-day effort. We're proposing straw wattles. As you can see, there's a darker line there just to the south of the well. And we would go ahead and do that test well, obtain samples, send those samples to the lab to be analyzed for particle size, and then we would determine what the new well looks like. Our plan would be to file a notice of intent with you at that point for the installation of the new well. We would know where the well was going to be, where the electrical connections were, where we would need to trench, and we would provide you with a plan to formally abandon the existing well at that location. The test well that we're proposing to put in now would be temporary. We would remove it once the new production well would be put in place. We would use it to monitor the conditions of the production well for the early parts of the testing and the pump testing in that area. This is an area that is, it's a gravel roadway. It qualifies, I think, as being degraded. The work is definitely within the 100-foot buffer zone, and it's definitely within the 75-foot adjacent upland resource area that you have in your bylaw. We're not proposing any work in any naturally vegetated areas at this point in time.
Okay. I guess that was one of my big questions, was trying to picture exactly where that is. It's an existing gravel driveway. I'm trying to picture that area, but.
So we walked in that
Yeah.
area. You might remember that there was a red steel well in the actual stream that had been
Yes,
installed
right.
probably in 1999 or 2000. And the decision at that point in time was that taking it out was more of a disturbance than leaving it there. And it's been there ever since. We are right. So if you were standing looking at that, you were standing on the bank immediately adjacent to these two wells.
Yep. Okay, now I'm picturing it. All right. Commission members have any questions or comments on what we've already heard? Not seeing you right away. Rebecca, I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments.
Personally, I think it would be beneficial to conduct a site visit because I recall the red well or post there, but I also remember there being one elsewhere on the property. Additionally, the test well, the fact that you've noted it's going to be removed, I think it's helpful. So it's very clear and transparent. And that it won't be hooked up to anything prior to filing for the notice of intent. But additionally, I did want to highlight to the commission that, and I'm sorry if Kelly mentioned it and I misheard, but she did highlight the 100-foot buffer, the 75-foot adjacent upland resource area, which is actually equivalent to the 100-foot buffer. A lot of people mess this up. So the first 25 feet from BVW or the wetland is the no disturb, and then the additional 75 is the adjacent upland resource area. So just to note that this is wrong on the plans. And in addition to that, it shows some flags for mean annual high water line, which is much appreciated, but I'm under the understanding that this is then a perennial stream, and in which case this would carry a 200-foot riverfront area.
It does, excuse me, Rebecca, in the document, it doesn't show on this plan just because it's too far away, but it does talk about, and there's an alternatives analysis for riverfront included in the document that was provided to you.
In the document, yes. So I was just highlighting it this evening for the commission because the other resource areas were highlighted. And then again, just highlighting that the 75-foot buffer you have labeled here is actually the same, the 75-foot buffer or the 75-foot adjacent upland resource area would run even with a 100-foot buffer. So I see that you've noted the 75-foot buffer, but just to be cognizant that that's not the end of the adjacent upland resource area. So this area here, just giving a reference point orientation to proximity to the wetland resource area in and of itself.
Noted, and I'll get the engineer to correct that. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Like I said, you have it labeled here as buffer. So technically it's not labeled incorrectly. It was just referenced incorrectly at this time. So those are my insights, Brian.
All right. Hearing that, commission members, would people appreciate the opportunity to go out for a site visit? If to say it probably couldn't hurt. We do have some new members on the commission. If you have an NOI coming down the pipe, just to get people out there, take a look and get a good idea where everything's kind of situated, where everything stands right now. I'm more than happy to come back out and take another look and make sure I know where exactly this area is. Other commission members have strong thoughts or feelings one way or another?
I think that would be helpful, Brian.
Okay. All right.
I agree. I'd like to go also, Brian.
All right. So I would ask, and Kelly, I'll probably ask you in a minute if we can continue and set up a site visit, but any additional questions that members of the commission have at this time before we get out there, or anything that you would like to see marked in the field? I'm sure that like the test well location will be marked out and some of the basics, but anything specific or any other additional questions right now? All right, so Kelly, if possible, would you mind if we continue this until our next meeting so that we can set up a site visit in the interim and get the commission members out there to take a look and see if we can see exactly what's going on?
No, not at all.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the request for determination of applicability for Escalante International until our next public hearing, Tuesday, July 5th at 7:15 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Okay, thank you. And so Kelly, I will be reaching out to the commission members individually to confirm their availability between now and the next meeting. So hopefully we can coordinate a site visit in a short amount of time. If you have any dates or days of the week to stay away from or evenings to stay away from, please feel free to email me so that I have that as I'm discussing it with the commission members individually.
Certainly. I
Okay.
don't, it would be great if we could do one site visit for everybody.
Yep.
That would be my preference. But other than that, I think we just have to adjust based on, what works for you guys.
Sure. Thank you.
So just pulling up my notes. Rebecca, are you ready to move on back? Well, move back to 7-Eleven, 713?
Yep.
All right. I guess I would, so the Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for a request for determination of applicability for 7-Eleven/713 Main Street, the proposed renovation in addition to a 2-story building on site. For our loyal viewers and listeners, you can remember last time we had kind of gone through what the RDA was requesting, and we had requested of the applicants basically to put in some specifics. Oftentimes an RDA isn't considered for something this close to a riverfront area, but I think we were all in agreement that this is a very unique lot, interesting location, and the building itself is degrading before our eyes. So it asked for a little bit, an extra amount of specifics to be put into the RDA, which I was looking through. It looks like they have come back in. I didn't have additional question. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should kind of flip through my notes. I didn't think I had additional questions as the RDA is proposed and written out now. So I want to open it to members of the commission first. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts based on how this RDA stands now. Not seeing any. Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this RDA or this project? I'm not seeing any. Rebecca, any comments, thoughts, or questions on this project?
Not at this time.
Okay. Rebecca, you will usually inspect the wow, I'm so sorry, I've lost the
Limit of
ability to
work,
speak.
there were erosion controls.
Thank you. I was trying to say, you'll usually inspect the erosion controls before work begins, correct? Well,
Yes, the commission is able to condition that.
okay. So I think what I would like to, well, let me ask again, any questions, comments, anything anyone would like to see added before I make a motion to close this hearing? Not seeing any. All right, so I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for request for determination of applicability for 7-Eleven/713 Main Street. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. All right, so I'd like to make a motion that the commission issue a -3 determination for the request for determination of applicability for 7-Eleven/713 Main Street with the following condition, that erosion controls be installed and inspected by the town's conservation agent before work begins, before the rest of the work commences.
May I also suggest, you weren't
Please.
already going to do so, to directly reference this plan submitted by In Situ Studio Architects dated 6/16/2020 with a revision date of 6/16/2022 to ensure that we have the most up-to-date
Yep.
plans referenced.
So condition that the conservation agent has a chance to inspect erosion controls before construction begins. And that the plans that we are agreeing to are those that were drafted and presented at this meeting, at this evening's meeting, with a revision date of June 16th, 2022 attached. Do I hear a second for that determination?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jillian. Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
You. So we will have, I will finalize the draft of that determination. It will be available for the commission signatures. Upon receipt of the final signature, I will notify in situ or Craig, whomever is preferred in that case. And we can coordinate pickup or who the appropriate party is to mail it to. Sound good?
Rebecca, thank you. It's Craig. Would you notify Tim at in situ, please?
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Rebecca, you let me know when you are good to continue. Don't rush.
Good.
Okay. All right. In that case, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for a request for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 580 Main Street. Rebecca, is there an update on this project?
If I mute myself. There is, in that we have fully contracted our peer review consultant. It will be a soil scientist from BSC Group, and they are working with the property owner to coordinate a date to go out on site to conduct the peer review. That being said, the applicant has requested a continuation until the peer review can be carried out, understandably so. To note, both potentially relevant to this resource area delineation, but I'm not sure that it will make a difference, but relevant to just the permitting process going forward. The state has notified us that there is a mild drought for central Massachusetts at this time. Bolton is included within that area. So just to be cognizant of that.
Commission members have any comments, questions? All right, in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 580 Main Street till our next public hearing, Tuesday, July 5th at 7:30 PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
Second.
All right, everybody wants to continue. All those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Okay.
Can I ask quick, commission members who were at the June 7th, 2022 meeting, did you have a chance to read through the meeting minutes? And if so, any edits, changes, or questions? And if not, do you need more time to read through the June 7th, 2022 meeting minutes? Seeing no questions or comments or edits, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our June 7th, 2022 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim, I don't think you were present, so I get to skip you on this one, I think.
Okay.
Lori
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm in an aye as well.
So Jim would abstain from that vote.
Okay, sorry.
That's
Jim, How would you vote on that vote?
I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So still waiting for do you want me to just run through these, Brian?
Please, that would be excellent.
Still waiting on comments about the land use policy permit. And that directly relates to the request from the photographer. That is again to use the conservation land for basically a set up photography shoot. So then we have the guided trail walk Tuesday, June 28th at 12 p.m. We'll be starting from the Moen Trailhead off of Bond Hill Road. So all those interested, please feel free to RSVP prior or just show up. So an update on the Bower Springs dog waste. The 2 barrels seem to be more manageable. I don't know that maybe less people are visiting because now kids are starting to be home from school and maybe they're going on vacations. I could speculate all kinds of things. The other thing is that the 2 barrels have not been removed because camp is starting. So we're gonna be leaving them for camp and I'll remove them once camp is gone and see how that goes along with the signage and see if we even need them there anymore. The other thing was we did receive a report of a beaver that was found dead on the trail at Bowers. So just a reminder to the public that not saying it is someone, but we're outside of beaver trapping season right now. And in addition to that, your dogs or kids or people should not be harassing wildlife. I don't know what occurred in this circumstance, but I'm hoping it was naturally caused, but I think it's just a good time as summer is coming to just create awareness that the wildlife are on the conservation property. We have a responsibility to be respectful of that. Update on complaints received from John Powers Lane. So I had received complaints on 2 properties adjacent to one of the properties that we've had come before us to be brought into compliance. I visited both sites upon hearing the complaints. Lot 5 specifically had the complaint was that the area was being maintained and cleared into the 100-foot buffer. Upon visiting the site, it's very obvious where the 100-foot buffer and the extent of the adjacent upland resource area, the extent of the vernal pool habitat is on their property. There were some blueberry bushes that were required to be planted along a mulch bed or wood chip bed rather, that has not been maintained, but grass was mowed around it. So the solution to that was to stop maintaining the area beyond the limit of work. There was no cutting of any sort of woody vegetation that was within the 100-foot adjacent upland 75-foot adjacent upland resource area or the 100-foot buffer, but rather the landscaping company was mowing around it. So I am unaware at this time that that landscaping company or the property owner has continued to maintain that area. They were under the very clear understanding not to do so, and where they were allowed to maintain up to, which was the top of their slope. And then beyond the top of the slope down towards the wetland, they were not to maintain it. So it's very clear whether or not it's continuing. In addition to that, on the opposite side on lot 3, which is the first home on John Powers Lane on your right, or to the south of John Powers Lane, the homeowner had put in some loam or soil on top of what was previously riprap. And upon reviewing the operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater infrastructure, it was realized that those were actually meant to be grass swales and therefore maintained as such. So in that circumstance, The homeowner actually had asked for the operation and maintenance plan to better understand how to maintain the storm basin that's adjacent to their home as well. And what they are doing is looking to maintain those areas. In addition to that, I did notify them that if any of the loam does migrate into the resource area, it does need to be manually removed. I was there after a rainstorm and there was not material within the basin, and there wasn't any sign of migration of material onto the roadway. And it was relatively bare soil with some vegetation or some growth that was starting. I did notify the property owner as well that it may require a wattle if the migration of material does occur on site, but again, I did not observe any while I was present. So that was the update for John Powers Lane, for the complaints that had been received relative to the two adjacent properties. Do you want me to move on to the next item?
Yeah, what was I say? Is anybody here from the public to comment or have any questions? Commission members have any questions regarding John Powers Lane? I'm not seeing any. Okay. In that case, Rebecca, if you could move on.
Sure. So I have two requests, relatively administrative. The first, at least, is I would respectfully request that the commission consider authorization of destruction of duplicates only relative to documents within the Conservation Department files in accordance with municipal records retention schedule, which is established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I will be retaining at least one original complete set of documents for each filing that at least exists at this time. So this is preemptive of an ask that I will come back for. At this time, I'm only requesting duplicates. That is actually allowed because you're keeping the original, but in the future, once I go through the duplicates, I would also like to come back to the commission to review the municipal records retention schedule with you, and then actually be going through creating an electronic copy and then getting rid of, aside from the plans, and then the certificate of compliance of associated files, getting rid of those documents if they meet the retention schedule requirements or if those have lapsed at this time. But at present, my request is for the commission to consider authorizing me to be able to destroy only duplicates of these files. And I just wanted to be very transparent about what was being removed and basically why. And the reason why is file space. In addition to that, having duplicates, a lot of individuals are sending scale copies electronically, and that's the next ask for this evening. But we will always keep at least one original complete set of documents.
Sure. I had seen these both on the agenda, Rebecca, and I didn't have a problem with how they were written. They both made perfect sense to me. The only question I had, and I can't see it being an issue nowadays, is if somebody claimed the hardship of not being able to get you an electronic copy.
So that's a great question, Brian. So that second portion, and I was trying to do them separately, but that's fine. So this right now, technically our regulations do not require electronic document submittal other than the as-built at the end of the project. We, during this time of COVID and during this time of Zoom, we request those electronic filings, but they're not proof of the submittal date, and they are not the only copy that we receive. And so at this time, that's why I felt comfortable putting it on the agenda, because we're not removing that requirement. We're just adding the requirement so that it's in writing. So if it was ever contested, which it hasn't been, but if someone were to ever say, it's not a requirement, so I'm not going to do it, not that there's a hardship, I I want to have the ability to say the commission does in fact require an electronic submittal now, along with the hard copy submittal, which again is something we're getting currently, but I would like that to continue.
right.
So does that
Other
make
com-
sense that we're not completely removing? We're not removing anything, we're adding.
No, I again, and I don't see most people that are actually going to come forward with plans that would have some sort of any kind of issue submitting it electronically. I just worry about the 98-year-old that wants to do their own and wants to just give you the 2 handwritten copies and not do anything online, which is not something we see so much. Generally speaking, they'll hire somebody.
It's
I
still
think
accepted though.
I think I'm comfortable with both, especially if we can be, I think we would hope we would have the ability to be lenient if somebody could prove a true hardship. Other commission members have thoughts, questions, comments on how either of these two are written? Or if they oppose them, agree with them, either or? And it looks like everybody's comfortable. All right. In that case, like to call a vote. And I would ask that the commission vote to authorize the destruction of duplicates only documents within the Conservation Department files in accordance with municipal records retention schedule established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. At least one original complete set of documents for each filing shall be retained at this time. All those in favor, please say aye. Starting with Jillian.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Great, thank you. Brian, how I would suggest briefly amending that second consideration is if you propose a motion to revise or amend, as it's stated there, and to include a requirement for electronic document submittal in addition to existing regulatory requirements. So therefore, it's clear that it's not substituting, but rather adding to. So basically it's this, but at the end, if you want, if it doesn't sound right to you, at the end, just saying in addition to existing regulatory requirements.
No, it sounds fine to me. And again, it was more just worrying about the person who says they can't possibly get you one electronically. And
Yeah,
us
so
coming
that's-
back saying you have to. But
Yeah.
I'm fine. And again, I think it's the way it reads. I think it's clear that this is an addition to the electronic filing. So I'd be comfortable not amending it.
Okay.
But I don't know if other commission members disagree, want to see it switched to anything. And I'm not seeing that. All right. In that case, I'd like to propose a vote that the commission vote to revise and amend the Bolton Wetland Bylaw regulation language regarding the number of copies required for submittal. And to include a requirement for electronic document submittal. And apologies, I probably should have come up with the number of copies required for submittal being changed to 1. Is it yeah, okay. So my apologies.
So you're saying the hard copies?
Well,
one?
because we're voting to revise the bylaw.
Yeah.
Regarding the number of
Regulations.
copies required, should we not put what the changes to?
And to include a requirement for electronic document submittal.
Yeah. Which I think that part is fine, but if we're changing.
Oh,
number
so
of-
you're saying you want to change the number of hard copies to
Amendable
1.
to language, a number of copies for submittal. Oh, to include, all right, so the word I think "and" was throwing me, believe it or
Okay.
not. I think it's just regarding number of copies required for submittal to include a requirement for electronic.
Okay.
I
I think
almost,
you're
I was
correct.
almost
I
looking
think-
at as two different things that you want to change the number. They had to do 2 written copies and now it's just 1 written copy, 1 electronic, but
Whatever you
again,
would
the
like to
English language just
clarify
failed me
out
this
there.
evening and I apologize
that-
to everyone.
No, that was me as well. I believe originally I had written it that way for that purpose, Brian, but upon reviewing the regulations and the bylaw again, I didn't feel that it was necessary unless the commission felt it was necessary to change the hard copy requirements and therefore change the ask to solely including the requirement for electronic documents as well, not necessarily replacing it. So if you want to reword it, I'm completely comfortable and on the same page as you with
I am
that.
fine. I just might get rid of that and word, I think. And
Okay.
again, other commission members have strong thoughts, feelings, any wordsworths out there, wordsmiths that want to put their stamp on it. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we vote, the commission vote to consider, the commission vote to revise and amend the Bolton Wetland Bylaw regulation language regarding the number of copies required per submittal to include a requirement for an electronic document submittal. All those in favor, please say aye, starting with Jillian.
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So the other 2 items, just an ongoing agenda item. We're closing out year 1, going into year 2 of the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project funded through the action grant portion of the MVP program from the state. I encourage you to visit the website, and also going into year 2, we are going to be focusing on more turf and ornamental landscapes and resilient land management associated with that. So looking at sports fields, looking at existing lawn type land management, along with more ornamental styled landscaping. And how to improve resiliency relative to that. And then we still have our volunteer land steward position open, so please feel free to share that with everyone who's interested.
Absolutely will.
That's all I have for now.
All right. Well, you missed the fun, important one. Our next meeting, July 5th,
Oh,
we need to select a new chair and a new vice chair, or vice chair, I think is what we call them.
Mhm.
Just to say, if anybody wants to put their name forward between now and then, please do. But if nothing else, please be prepared, because we'll actually need to start the July meeting by voting on officers, or our next meeting by voting on officers. So I was gonna say, just be ready to vote, do your research. Talk to Rebecca about how much fun it can be to be a chair or vice chair of the Bolton Conservation Commission.
You can also email me if you want to nominate someone. And I can just say, we received this many nominations for this particular person, and then they can be voted in. The other thing, Brian, I apologize on interrupting, but do you want
You're
to
fine.
talk about the July meeting dates? I know we said the 5th already.
That's a good idea, yeah. We're trying to figure out, I talked to Rebecca earlier today, trying to figure out if we generally will do a second meeting during these summer months. What date would work, because I know we're running in against people who have other commitments, vacation times, all that good stuff. So right now, if we did the 5th, would
We
be
would
what,
be
the
the
19th.
19th if we're running on our regular schedule.
which would work. Rebecca, would you be able to do the 19th?
I would at this time. I do have a potential conflict that unfortunately may come up, but at this time, yes, I am available to do that meeting. If I am unavailable, I will also reach out to our assistant with the building department, and I'm not speaking for her time, but it is possible she may be able to do minutes at least.
Sure, because that will be back to in person at that. I keep forgetting that too, that,
Yes.
so we won't technically need IT or anybody to put together a whatever meeting notice or anything like that. So long as we, put together our regular posting it and everything. Would that work for most people? Would July 19th work for most currently?
I can do the 19th.
It's fine.
Okay. So say, Lori, we're going to be back in person, your favorite. You've missed me.
Then it gets tough when we're back in person.
I know.
This way's a lot easier. I can come in at 7 o'clock and log in.
Telling you, anyhow, we will figure this out. Okay,
You know,
so
With that, when we are back in person, so I will update you all if we hear something from the governor between now and then. Right now, remote meetings end June 15th. So to Brian's point, June 19th would mean we are in person. And we would be meeting at the Houghton building. So I will send an address and a map so that new members who might not be familiar with that building, it's right off of Main Street, are able to find it. The building is typically locked until I am there to unlock it. And normally I'm there to set up for the meeting. So I'm sure there will be a couple bumps during our first in-person meeting, but it will go swimmingly.
and I kept thinking it was the beginning of July, but you say it's the 15th, right? So our next meeting, we will still be remote. It won't be
Correct.
until the 19th. Okay.
Yep.
All right. That was all I had. Commission members, anybody have any new business? Seeing none. And as per our tradition, we will have our newest member of the Bolton Conservation Commission lead us in the singing of the Bolton anthem as we close out our meeting this evening. Jim?
Oh, very good.
It's just too much fun. All right. I'd like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
I second.
All those in favor, starting with Jillian,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I am an I as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you all very much. And I should say, welcome, Jim. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining. We do